Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
You're tuning in to the Goldilocks presentation of the Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine Show with Anthony Rodriguez. Anthony Rodriguez, aka Walking Crow, found transformational energy healing through a personal search into healing and was transformed by this experience. He made the decision to pursue training and has since become a certified energy healing practitioner with an emphasis on working with clients in recovery from addiction. His willingness to be open and listen has allowed him to be of service to many who seek a peaceful, serene, and healthier body, mind, and spirit. Call in now if you would like to speak with Anthony. The call-in number is 713-955-0332. Enjoy this transformational and healing show.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine Show. My name's Anthony Rodriguez, Walking Crow, and I'm your host. Welcome to another Tuesday edition of the show. I can't believe it's been a week, and it's been a celebratory month plus of having friends, teachers, master shamans as guests this last month plus. And we're going to continue that today with my producer, Tiffany White, Sage Woman, which I'm really excited about because she's just, as far as I'm concerned, an incredible person. And I'm really glad that I'm able to do this show because of her goodness and kindness and her vision of giving us a space to do this sort of thing, to share our practices with you, and to come into your space and allow you into ours as healers and teachers. Yes, it's another Tuesday. It's a little rainy in Los Angeles, and we're into the Pisces energy, and I am of that energy. I am a Pisces, and my birthday is, not that I need anybody to say happy birthday, but it's Friday, and I love knowing that I'm about water and emotion and change, and comfortable in my divine feminine energy with regard to that. Aho mitakiyasi, aho. I want to let you know, if you'd like to receive a 20-minute consultation, you can reach out to me and at Anthony at sacreddrummedicine.com, or you can call area code 818-442-1717, and we can talk for a little bit and see what's going on with you, and maybe set up a in-house energy healing session for you, or a long-distance energy healing session for you. We can do that. But first and foremost, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our special guest, Reverend Tiffany White, Sage Woman, and I refer to her as friend, teacher, master shaman. Reverend Tiffany White, Sage Woman, RMT, RHINHA, is a multidimensional healer, ascension guide, ordained spiritual interdenominational minister, divine channel, psychic medium, and holistic health practitioner. Even though she is a natural-born healer, her personal experiences, continued exploration, training, and certification in multiple healing modalities reflects that healing is an ongoing process, and I can attest to that as well. Aho. She is the owner of Goldilocks Temple of Healing, LLC, located in Groton, Connecticut. I think I pronounced that correct. And has clients located all over the world. Goldilocks Production is a subdivision of Goldilocks Temple of Healing, LLC. Tiffany produces radio and TV shows for those in the in the holistic profession. You can check out more about Tiffany at www.whitesagewoman.com, And I want to remind you that you can call in live, 713-955-0332, and you can ask Tiffany any question you'd like. You can ask me any question you'd like, or if it's you're just calling to check in and see how we are, or whatever it is that you want, please feel free. But I'd like to bring in Tiffany and say hello, good afternoon, Tiffany. How are you today?
Hello, I am wonderful. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm so excited that I get to do this. Not just to have the show, but excited that I get to ask you to come on the show and share your experience, strength, and hope with regards to your practices and the producing of the shows and Goldilocks Productions. It's such an exciting thing to be able to know somebody like you and of somebody like you.
Oh, well, I feel the way about you.
What's that?
I said I feel the same way about you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm always curious what leads people to becoming healers and coming to their gifts and practices the way they do, and I'm sure it's no different from with you, like it's been with the others. Well, maybe it's different, but I'm always curious to know how that happened for you and when that happened for you.
As a small child, I remember when I was a toddler, which my parents were totally blown away that I could recall memory from 1 and 2 years old, and but I've always known that I was a healer, so to speak, but I didn't know how to articulate that. That the word healer just wasn't used in the 60s like that. And so I just didn't, and I do believe that when you're plugged in so openly as a child words actually just seem to add confusion instead of clarification. But I knew that we all have this ability of healing as long as we don't get in our own way. And I remember having a very profound experience with my biological dad, because I'm lucky enough to have had two dads. But my biological dad was a forest ranger when I was born, and we were in the mountains in Virginia. And I was about 1 year old, and we both had this experience. He had strapped me to like the front and faced me out so I could see as we were hiking, and we get to this mountain edge, and we're just looking down at the valley below, and there's water below, and all of a sudden there was an eagle that was flying by, but it was circling us, and I remember the eagle eye. And I had brought that up to my dad, and he was surprised that I even remembered that, because he said it was so for him too, because I felt like it was an initiation for us, like a remembering of who we are, because that he said that at that moment he knew he wanted to be an actual minister, a Lutheran minister, and he was going to pursue that. And maybe for me, it would just help reawaken and establish the healer part. And and so, but now fast forward, my parents did divorce, and when I, several years later, so I'm watching my mother. Here I am at the age 5 and 6. The divorce was really rough, and I have a younger brother at this time who was a baby. And I actually watched my mom slip into deep depression. And then I noticed that in her aura, there was this blackness. It's like this black, started off like a black speckle, but not, perfectly shaped like that. It was just like this black blur that was following her around, and it would grow in her depression and sadness. And I knew it wasn't an entity. I knew it wasn't that. I knew that it was my mom's own creation. Uh-huh. And it was the depression outside her body. Then it attached to her aura, and then it went into the body. And I watched my mom activate cancer. And so by 8 years old, about 8 years old is when she got the diagnosis of breast cancer, which, to think about this now, most women have breast cancer because of the heart chakra. If they experience a heartbreak, guess where it shows up in the physical body?
Yeah.
And so, so it was just tremendous. And I have to tell you, it wasn't just my mom, because now fast forward, I mean, I had some time away from my biological dad, and there was a lot of anger issues that I had to deal with from him stepping aside to pursue his mission. And my mom didn't want to be a part of it, so that was why, But, so I had to deal with my own things, but I'm glad that we found each other before he had crossed over, because he had leukemia, which is a form of cancer, right? He had this, and I'm like, they both activated it, because they both talk about how that was the most traumatic event in their life.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah. Pretty powerful, huh?
That's pretty powerful, because it took me a lifetime to understand, to have that understanding of where those things come from. Nobody taught me those things. These are things that Master CEO, who's been on this show, and he's a good friend of mine, he said to me one day at lunch, he says, Anthony, he says, you're a seer. He says, you see and know things that you just see and know. He says, he says, do you know that about yourself? I said, no. and I noticed, like, I know where you're right, where breast cancer comes from. I know where prostate cancer comes from. I studied the chakras when I became an energy healer. They taught me that part, the chakras, and I started attaching the emotional state and the trauma and the hurt and the wounds to those areas. And there was a young lady who's coming to see me later today. As a matter of fact, she's in a wheelchair. She fell through a false floor in a building, and she broke her area in her broke back in the lower part of near the coccyx, near the lower, in the sacrum area. And she said to me, I keep getting UT infections. I said, oh, well, of course you do. First of all, you have a broken connection to others. I said, you think you have a broken connection to others, because she told me that her family life was really good, which sounds good, but a lot of times we don't tell the truth. We lead with denial sometimes, not intentionally, but it's habit, and it's habit forming. And I said, you have an issue in your self-esteem. And she said, what? I said, yeah. I said, your third chakra. I said, you're rolling around in wheels and you're having to look up at everybody. How tall are you? She says, I'm 5'9". I said, yeah. I said, now you're having to look up at everybody. I said, and you're not able to get around on your own power. I said, well, using your arms, yes, but not in your ground, not in your root, not in your. I said, your tree, your roots have come unsnapped, unrooted. I said, your tree has been shaken, and she just looked at me, and she said, oh my gosh. I actually sent her that night to see Master CEO, and she didn't go, but she's coming over here today to have a conversation with me. So. I don't know why me and when. Well, I know this actually started a few years ago, but it was as I moved forward and putting my hands on people and working with people and looking into them and looking at them, it really changed for me. And just knowing, I didn't have any clue. So but to be able to know that at your age when you started, I'm like, that's incredible. I mean, because it took me a lifetime.
Well, the thing is that even though you're still so connected, and I was aware and able to hold that, and even hold the communication with the angels and the higher beings, and the thing I did have to kind of just turn off for a little bit was I could see spirit very clearly, and my mother didn't want to hear any of that. She didn't want to hear my grandmother telling secrets about her.
Yeah.
She didn't want to hear any of it. And I remember it just being so frustrated because I expected, or I thought that everyone was like this. Can't everyone do this? And so we're just in that innocence, we're just, you know, telling and sharing with everyone what we're seeing and feeling and experiencing. And then I kept being told, no, we can't talk about that. You got to be quiet, you know. And I think what the last straw is I saw when my dad's grandparents had crossed over, and they were the only ones that would listen to me and allow me to be who I could express anything, you know. They loved when I told them what spirit said. And when they both, my grandfather in his sleep, and I was 12 years old, my grandfather crossed over in his sleep very, very peacefully, but it was a brain aneurysm. And my grandmother didn't want to live without him, and she willed herself to die, and she did 2 weeks later. So to me, both my grandparents left the earth plane very fast and sudden, and I felt unsupported, like my whole support team was gone, you know, in the physical realm. And so I remember just crying and asking God and the angels, or just who would, you know, please, Creator, God, whoever is, just I can't do this. Please just take this away for a little bit. I don't want to see them. I mean, I still communicated with them. I could still hear them, but I didn't want to see them so clearly that it confused me. Are they real? I mean, you know, are they really here or not? You know, that kind of thing. Because I think everyone talking to other ones who can see really clearly, we have like this little test, you know, where I go over and just kind of stand really close, and if my hand goes through, I know they're not there, you know, before you tell anybody else, you know, hey. But it has been coming back. I've noticed in the last 10 years it's opening up more, and because it was funny, I had gone somewhere with both my sons, and so you stop at a crosswalk as people walk by. So I stop at a crosswalk, and the sons are like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm stopping for this couple. Don't you see them?" And I look back at them, and they're in the back seat, and they're like, "There's no one there." And I turn back around, and there was no one there, and yeah, I know, right? I was like, oops.
Now let me ask you a question. You said that when your grandparents died so quickly, you know, they went so quickly, and you felt unsupported. Did that manifest or show up in your body at all?
Actually, it did, because I had started in my teenage years, because I was so much in my head then about not knowing how to act and be in this world, and I was always confused. In a matter of 3 or 4 years, in my early teenage, I started developing migraines and headaches.
Oh, wow.
I started to, you know, and I just, it's probably, I've been migraine-free now since 2008. I got off all my meds, but I didn't just stop. I'm going to say this. I was on a lot of medication for the migraine I was taking. I mean, they were severe. They had me on epileptic medicine to control my migraine. So anytime they increased my dosage, I couldn't drive for a week, because it really does, you know. But I felt off during that whole time on these powerful meds. And I said, you know what, I felt I have to get back in alignment. I have to be back. I have to be at a certain space within my body by a certain time, because I knew my mission was calling. You know, it was like, come on, we've got stuff to do, and it's not just to live life medicated. You know, so I worked on a game plan on how to, all right, so if this is my body, I know I've got to start making adjustments immediately with my mind and my soul, with my emotions. And so it means being brutally honest with yourself, even if it's hurtful. And keeping a journal helped me do that. And where it was, and And when you first started journaling, if it's angry, it's okay. At least you're getting it out, you know?
Yeah.
Some people feel like, oh my goodness, you need to burn that and get rid of it. But why? It's a part of you. And, you know, you're releasing it. You're releasing it. And good, bad, and ugly, it's a part of the whole. So, and this is how you can tell. It's like some people are like, well, I don't want to write if I'm upset or angry. Well, why? Where else is it going to go? Is it going to stay in your body? You sure don't want it to stay there. So I started to take care of myself spiritually, started to try to meditate. I was so high strung with anxiety, which is a lot, which I know all part of the migraines too, that I couldn't sit still. But even if I did open eye meditation, if I didn't close my eyes, daydreaming is a form of meditation, and I used to daydream a lot. And so when I realized that is a form of meditation, I was like just allowing that to happen. Even a walking meditation in nature helped tremendously. Just count your steps really slowly, like one, just count really slowly while you're walking if you feel your mind going off track. And these are the things that helped me. But know that I didn't stop any of my medications cold turkey. I couldn't. And I had to step down, and I gave myself a year plan. So starting in beginning of 2008, I had to find the right doctor. I mean, I went through like 3 or 4 doctors. The 3 doctors wouldn't support me with it. And I was on some other meds that hormonal replacement that you're supposed to be on for the rest of your life. And I said, no, it's not real. It's a synthetic. I was like, watch me get off of it. And I found one doctor finally after many said no, one who supported me because I said, I'm doing this with or without your help. Are you going to help me? And he said, yes. So he helped me in the whole step down with the medication process. We did tests, periodic blood tests, and then by the end of 2008, I was completely off my medication. And it took and I had to maintain making sure what I was consuming. I did start some green shakes, some green protein shakes to get the greens in me, you know, and then along with being very conscious of what I was eating. And so, I mean, to this day, it may be far and few that I may have. I don't have the pain portion in the head anymore. Sometimes I used to almost like it was called a whiteout, where you lose vision in one eye. If I'm too stressed, if I work too much, it would happen. But that hasn't happened years now. I've gotten very good with taking time out for myself, taking time out, you know, to check in and make sure with my guides and angels, and just that, okay, we're on track here, but just to take time for me, because in this hurry, busy, and walk away from your cell phone, walk away from the electronics, and just, you know, and just reconnect, or have that connection with nature. We are a part of it. Go feed birds. Go do something to just, you feel like you're such a part of that whole picture. You really do feel part of the oneness, even if we feel so small and insignificant in nature. We really are significant. We really are important because we're a part of this whole creation.
You know, it's interesting. This morning I was walking, and I used to listen to music when I would walk. Sometimes kirtan, sometimes just some meditative music, just some different things. And I stopped doing that because I feel I need to be mindful of where I am and what I'm doing. And this morning I took off. I was at the Rose Bowl, actually walking around the golf course in the Rose Bowl, and I put my earbuds in, but I didn't turn anything on, and I was just listening. And what I heard was just be mindful, just notice. And I started to greet the grandmother trees and the grandfather rocks and Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, the rain, you know. And as I was walking, I just was listening. And at one point, all I could hear was geese, and they caught my attention as I watched them come in for a landing. I just listened, and noticed, and then I turned around to continue my walk, and one of my elders was standing there. And I was like, how did that happen? I hadn't seen him in 4 months, and there he was. And, and you're right, being mindful and attuning to even the leaves that are on the ground, the things like that, seeing the acorn, just noticing, for me is become a big deal, because I have trouble quieting my mind. When I wake up in the morning and I sit quietly, I know the average time that I sit is about 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, but mostly about the 10-minute mark, where I can sit still and just, be with self, be with spirit, be with, whatever's silence is surrounds me. And silence is different to different people. Even when there's noise, for me, that's silence. That doesn't distract me from what it is that I'm doing. So the mindfulness is really important for me. And it's funny that you said that. And as you said that, I'm like, gosh darn it, if that's not what I was told this morning. And sometimes I don't know. And then I say to myself, wait, was I told that, or was that a thought? But I know that there's no monkey mind. It's just, hey, it's like sometimes it comes in my voice, and I'm like, okay,
Right.
And I'm not anywhere near where some like people like you are, and people like Jeannie Love or others are like. I just amazed at the way they hear things, the way things come into them. I don't experience it that way, I think, or maybe I do and I don't know. There's always that.
And I find that everyone experiences differently, because just like on a radio, there's so many different channels. Well, how everyone channels and listens or tunes in is different, and it's okay. And there's so many different paths that all lead to the same destination. The thing is that once you start to really work on, and like for me, always staying connected with the angels and communicating with angels and even our accelerated masters and these beings. And I have to tell you, there's a fine line between angels and aliens. And no, aliens isn't like the Hollywood, we're going to kill you aliens. They are star beings who want to help us. And they're our family, they're our ancestors too. And so, in tuning into them, it does come across like it scrolls across in your mind. And so it is a part of you and your thought, but because you're like, that's fantastic. Where did that come from? Because I know I couldn't come up with it.
Yeah. Right.
It comes just like that, and so that's different than actually communicating. Well, at least for me, with our loved ones in spirit, where you can see them and communicate with them. But even it depends on what vibration. If they're not on the same vibration or dimension as you, I always just refer back to my guides or the angels, the descended master beings, who they're probably reading the Akashic records to me, or I'm reading them, but I can communicate to someone who's really hard to communicate with via the guides and the angels. I just sort of bypass them and say, okay, what message do they have? But there are some who come in very, very strong, and you could actually see them in front of you, and they start to, and it's not as clear as when I was young, but I see like the shadow, and then I start to see some features start to form, but then I see their mouth moving and like they're talking that way, even though it is telepathic, mind to mind. Those who've had a life on this earth plane are used to talking that way, with their mouth. So to comfort you, they'll move their mouth. But it is different, but it's and see what happens when we allow and we ask, well, how long have you been there? Or I just noticed this, but they could be around us all the time. And this is why we have to take that time for ourselves, or that time just to zone out so that we can listen and notice, pay attention. And so I totally agree with you. It's like I don't I don't put headphones on in any way because I have such sensitive ears, and I'm always hearing stuff in my ears. It would confuse me even more if I put headphones on, you know. But yeah, it amazes me. We hear these stories now of people walking with, and they think they're doing good because they're listening to meditative music. They might be listening to a meditation. They might, you know. But the thing is that you're disconnected from nature. Yeah. And so when you're in nature, connect with nature. You want to listen to a meditation audio, do that inside the house, you know, in your sacred space. Because, you know, how I've seen, and we've heard of this too, people, you know, almost walking into an accident or you know, because they're not paying attention. They can't hear anything. They can't hear emergency vehicles. They can't hear someone honking their horn. Because they're just distracted.
You know, you mentioned alien. You said alien. You almost can't tell the difference between angels and aliens. Is that what you said?
Yeah, because they're both very high vibrational energy. Yeah.
Now, you know what's going on in parts of my life right now, and so and what I'm about to share, I haven't shared with very many people. And about maybe 3 months ago, maybe a couple of months ago, my wife is an energy healer, and she was doing some energy work on me, and it got really uncomfortable for me, almost like somebody was suffocating me. But while I was on the table, I could see her, but when the way that I saw her wasn't her physical. It was you know, the way people describe aliens with the bigger head, you know. A bigger head and the long fingers and the long limbs, thin, very thin, and it was a black entity that I was seeing. And when I got off the table, I told her, and she said, "Well, that's something that I saw when she was a child. I think she saw something like that, and she feels like, you know, something had come to her and changed her, and I didn't know how to. I still, you know, I didn't understand it, even though I was seeing it. I didn't quite understand why I was seeing her in that way, you know, and because I know she looks like physically, but it just wasn't,
right.
You know, it was maybe because of the way she was working on me. I don't know, but it was quite the experience to see her in that way. Yeah.
She was one of the also like a black entity. Black's not always bad, and white's not always good.
Yes.
Now, in healing session, I just open the space. I create the space. I take the individual to the upper vibrations, or I open the portal, which is what healers do. We open the portal up, and we're bringing that high vibrational energy right into the sacred space. And so why we do that is because when you're in that high vibrational energy, you remember who you are divinely. You remember your divine design. You remember that disease is an illusion, and it helps you to work on healing yourself. Now, I also do call in the healing angels. We all are familiar with healing angels and the healing guides, these healing beings. I have seen some that look like they're columns of light, different colors. This is how sometimes the angels appear. Sometimes I can see their wings, sometimes they don't. And then I can also tell when there are alien healing beings that come in, and they look like that. But and if you stay with it and free your mind of what we have been taught about, you know, and just let it go, you'll see that they'll start to change color. But they do phenomenal work, more than what we could do. And they can do some wonderful healing. And I'm going to tell you, this may blow some people away, but because it blew me away when I saw it. The most fantastic thing I've ever seen happen to a client on the healing table was organ transplant. I stood at the feet, held the space, and there was a team of like these powerful doctors and healers working on this woman, and I saw, and there wasn't a cut, but it was like they used these different color lights, almost like lasers, but the laser didn't cut. It was hard to explain. It was like you could see images like on top of each other, and then it was like I could see, a diseased organ coming out, and then another one going right back in there, and it was just like, oh, and I have to really just take deep breaths and keep holding the space. I didn't want to drop out of it, by your mind kicking up, going, what the heck?
Yeah.
But I continued to hold the space, and I was like, guys, I'm going to have a lot of questions after this. They're like, yeah. No. They were like, okay, now she has to have 2 weeks of light duty. I'm like, I got to tell her all this. They're like, you're not going to tell her she had a transplant because she's going to think you're cuckoo. They're like, you're just going to tell her to drink lots of water and to have light duty, not to try to lift anything for the next couple of weeks. Because I think it was a kidney and something else that was being replaced. There's 2 organs that were replaced. And so I told her, you need to drink lots of water. You just need to take it slow. It was a very intense healing. And I told her the angels were around and was really working on her. And that I was like, this may sound crazy, but they want you to take 2 weeks light duty. And she goes, oh, I just start my 2-week vacation today. And I was like, wow, that's like so amazing.
There was something that happened to me that I know was divine intervention and divine spirit that carried me through this situation. Wow, it just came up really strongly in my chest. Oof. And I was driving Lyft, and I was driving this gentleman that I picked up here in Pasadena out probably to, another part of LA. And I was just off the I-10 freeway, and it was around a lot of shopping centers and stuff. And I never go through red lights. I just don't. That's not something that I practice. It's just even by accident. It doesn't. But this particular day, for some reason, and he was sitting in the back seat, I went through this intersection, and I realized in the middle, while I was in the intersection, that the light was red, but the car was literally picked up, lifted up, and I was placed on the other side of the intersection. And I looked in the rearview mirror. I said, I apologize. I never do that. I said, I am so sorry. I don't go through red lights. And I said, but I can never say never anymore. I made the joke. I can never say never. And I realized, I don't know if he noticed, and maybe he didn't say anything. I have to say he was Indian, Hindi, and he didn't say a word. But I was just like, what just happened? And I didn't really tell very many people about that either. But I know that I experienced the floating of that car through the intersection, because there was no braking of the other cars. Nobody braked, and I didn't hear any tire screeching. And wow, whew.
That's great. Yeah.
That's landing on the most incredible way right now.
I've heard a lot of people say, share stories, kind of more and more now. It's safe for us to share our stories. But even truck drivers or those that travel a lot or they have to drive. And I know that when I was working out of a friend's shop that was 2 hours away, like one day a week I would go up there. And so it was on the way home, it was dusk. And it was just like, you have to be careful because, they call it, I think it's driving on the white line meditation when, especially at night time, when you're driving, and it becomes very meditative with that, okay, especially on straight roads, you just kind of almost like check out. So you have to be very, pay attention. And so it was something like that. It was a straightaway, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think I'm gonna have to lower the window because I need to, I need some cold air in here. I need to make sure I'm awake here because I'm feeling really comfortable, too comfortable. I don't want to close my eyes or blink. And And then I looked at the exit sign and realized that there's lost time. How did I get from, like, let's say, you know, exit 28 to exit 9 in a matter of seconds?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And I know a lot of people may experience that. It was just like, how did I get here really quick?
I've experienced that. But I have to tell you, telling you that story right now, relating that just came, it's coming back. The emotion that just filled my body telling you that, you know, about that experience was just, I almost lost control of my, you know, I just almost started crying completely while I was telling you that. And it was hard to hold it together. It was hard to hold the space for myself, but here I am.
And
wow,
that's okay. And that's
moment.
okay. You cried, and I think that's beautiful when we have that we call like this wave just come over us. It's because it is beautiful. Our heart knows what's beautiful once we get our mind to stop freaking out.
Right? That's for sure. Whew. You know, and that's interesting because my life has changed a lot in the last couple of years. As the medicine has come, as I refer to it, I become more willing to just say, okay, I don't ask questions, you know, and
right.
There's been a lot of stuff going on around me stepping into that place that has affected me deeply. And I'm having to let go of people and to be able to be okay with myself, you know. And I've been told that it's shameful, it's selfish. I should be ashamed of myself. And it's like, wow, okay, if you say so. You know, the 2 years that I've been unemployed, I would go out and walk, you know, and be mindful, be in nature. Because I needed to heal, I needed to listen, I needed to be, and I was told the same thing, that I should be ashamed of myself for taking that time and not taking care of my family. And for me, that was taking care of my family. An hour a day, who is that? That's only helps. It keeps me from, you know, going into a post office and you know, taking out everybody in the room, you know. And people don't understand that. They don't get that. You know, they haven't walked in my moccasins, and I feel like it's so unfair, but it's none of my business what they have to say, because that's them, you know. And I try not to fight back with that, because that's just no use. There's no point in trying to defend myself, because it's, you know, they're going to say what they're going to say. But I grow behind it. I grow in front of it.
And it's just like, let's not stoop down to their level, because they're trying to pull you down energetically. And it took me a while to realize that too, especially when you're releasing anger, you know. So those that release anger are a little bit more sensitive, and we have to be very careful on how we respond to somebody, you know. Yeah. And it's but we work through all that, and it's like you said, once you, and I'm sure you did too. We all do. We kind of and. Yes, I'm ready. Let me get back into this wholeheartedly, open up, and let me do my mission. But you can still have like a little bit of that skepticism, and we test more than probably the average person would. Yeah. But we would test and push that envelope and then stop. And I totally like what you just said. Now it's so easy now. It's, you know what, I would be crazy to take steps back and you know, not trust and not go with the flow, because I've seen it work to our advantage so many times when we just stop fighting. And think about the birds in the sky. Think about the crow and the eagle and the hawks. Oh. They are going with the flow of the airstream. What would happen if they fight it? If they decide, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to go this way, they would fall out of the sky.
Yeah. You know, I want to say real quick, 713-955-0332. If you're listening and I know you're out there, give us a call if you have any questions, and if you want to say hello to Tiffany, our producer, Tiffany, White Sage Woman. I'm really grateful that you're here. Also, you mentioned that eagle when you were the baby, when you were strapped to your father. About a month ago, maybe less, I went up to a place where I go to drum, and I harvest sage up there, and I offer tobacco, and I do what I do. And I was there singing a song. I was facing direction of the east, and I looked to my left, and I heard two hawks. I heard a hawk, and I looked to my left and saw two hawks flying towards me from the mountain. But what I could see was there. It's funny you said eye. I could see his one's eye. His mouth was open, and he was at a great distance still from me. But his talons were out, like he was about to strike a smaller animal. But he never came out of the sky. He stayed in the sky. But I saw that imagery coming towards me, and as I stood there looking to my left.
Wow! Wow!
And I thought, wow, how powerful is it that? I mean, I'm only a few hundred feet off a street, at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains, but my intention of being in that place amongst the medicine, the trees and the plants and the rock, grandmothers and grandfathers and Mother Earth, was purposeful. I knew why I was there. And I never know what I'm going to experience when I'm standing there, because it's just like, oh, and then crows start to call me from my right side. I'm like, okay. And I stood there laughing, kind of scratching my butt and my head at the same time. And like, okay, I don't know what this means yet, but I'm sure I'll be told, or they'll let me know. And and I was taught when I was becoming an energy healer, you are he who notices. I'm he who notices. I'm he who understands. I'm he who sees. I'm he who is aware. And I've accepted that, and I understand that, and sometimes to my detriment, I think, because other people, gotta say what they gotta say about me, but I don't care. I have to stand in my power. I have to stand in my medicine, and people like you and Emma and Jeannie and Master Seal and Marsh Engel, stand by me, behind me, and next to me, in front of me, and I'm so appreciative of it. You and I haven't known each other that long, but when I hear you talk,
longer, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but it feels more like it feels longer. Yeah.
When you speak to me, there's such a calming effect that I get from you. It's like it's like, this may sound goofy, but it's like laying on a cloud of and not everybody can do that for you, or I guess let me say it another way. I can't let everybody do that for me, or I won't. It's not everybody that will have that ability to be with me in that way, or vice versa. That I won't allow others to be with me in that way, and it's very warming. It's very comforting, and I want you to know that. And it's and you're right. It seems like a long time that we've known each other. It feels that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to we do have calls that are listening on hold. If you would like to get on air with Anthony and myself, press 1. All right. So there are some callers listening, but if you're in listen mode right now. But if you would like to come out of listen mode and speak to us, please press 1 on your phone. All right. So back to it.
Now, I have to tell you, this has been an amazing show so far, because it's already 1:48 Pacific time, and I'm like, where did 45 minutes go?
I know. Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about that comfort, about that feeling of just being held and carried. Time goes. Time doesn't matter. It just goes. Wow. So now I want to ask about Goldilocks Productions and how you stepped into that, and why you decided, and when you decided to step into that arena with regard to the healing of Goldilocks Temple, or is that right?
Yes. Well, it was actually a total surprise to me because it wasn't my decision. It was the universe's decision. But I had it was the Goldilocks Temple of Healing. That name came to me. It was what my great-grandmother and my grandmother nicknamed for me because I was the first girl in my dad's family that was born in like 90 years. So They were really happy to have a girl, and so my hair would grow long, of course, and the blonde white hair almost. So they called me Goldilocks. And then that was their nickname for me, but and I had kind of forgotten about that, and so it wasn't until I was in meditation, and I was in meditation, and they came to me and said, "This is what you're going to name your business." And I thought, okay, and they're like, "With a Y." And you'll understand, there we go. And that they were the ones that gave me the name of the business, and that I would understand later on that it would mean so much more than just the color of my hair, that Goldilocks was actually a very spiritual, deep meaning, and I'll understand later. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's good. I listened, and that's what I named in honor of them. And then just moved on. And then I think it was 2012 when I had become involved with the psychic network. This lady wanted to start a network and asked me to join. And I was actually kind of terrified because I didn't like the word psychic. But I got, what we need to heal the word, though. You know, more healers need to step in and heal the word psychic medium. Yes, you know, there's going to be charlatans in every arena, in every area of life. And they're like, but if we can help heal and smooth it over, and that psychics aren't these gypsies, you know, not everyone's like that, so to speak. I was like, okay, I'll join this network. And that's where I started my radio show. My radio show has been on for 5 years, Spiritual Insight Radio, and then I've switched to TV and kind of just do both. But that's where I started really coming out with radio and TV, and just more publicly, let me say that, more than just a local area, because these shows reach international levels. It's globally, all right? And so I was with this network, and then about 10 months into the network, the website, the lady who took care of the website, she also ran the shows, she had to quit. She just upped and quit with no warning anything. And so I stepped in to help her. My husband is IT, so he took care of the website. I took care of the shows. And slowly he was showing me how to build the websites and take care of things, and I just took care of everything. And it was 2015, and I remember it very, very profoundly. Issues started to happen. And guides were coming in very strong. You need to start your own production company. Just step aside from this. You know, this isn't working anymore. You just need to walk away. But here's the thing: is when you put others above yourself and drag your feet, and that's what I did. I was like, well, what about everyone else? What about those with shows? They won't have shows. What about this? What about, you know? That's how I answered them was, well, but wait, what about this? Finally, I just stopped because I realized, you know, I'm going to make myself sick again if I do this, if I'm overthinking it. And I was like, I've got to spread my wings and fly. I've got to trust. And so I was like, but I never thought I would be doing production. They're like, start your own production company called Goldilocks Productions. And I was like, okay, you know, right, I'm going to do it. I just do it. I jumped off the cliff. I've got a flyer. I'm going to fall. And so I created the website and set it up. And when, you know, people either followed me over, they contacted me friends of the friends, and it was just like, what? And here we are. But this is what they said. They were like, this is what is needed. Needed to have a safe space, and we all are like a team and a family, a safe space where we can all work together. There's no competition, no stabbing in the back, and it's just bringing together circles of holistic health practitioners, because every one of them, even if they're a psychic reader, they're a healer too. And so it really is beautiful. I love how Creator in the Universe works, because the people that are the same vibrational energy as the rest of us come to us. They find us, and they become part of the team, which is beautiful. But I had to go. I had to trust. I had to, again, no matter how many times you do it in life, it keeps happening. I had to surrender again. I had to let go. I had to trust and just go.
Yeah, as afraid as I've been to let go, I know that I have to, because I invited somebody in to work with me 4 years ago, and I had to let go. I haven't been working a physical a job. My office job went away 2 years ago in the end of March, and I didn't ask for that. But what I got out of it over the last couple of years has been quite an amazing, for me, spiritually, emotionally, an amazing journey, because I got to heal in a lot of ways that I never ever would have expected, at all. And I'm ready to take that leap again, because I'm starting to meet people who own yoga studios and different things. I'm working with through a chiropractor, a friend of mine, through her chiropractic office. She's got a big space and she's got healing rooms, and it's starting to open itself up, because I decided to say, okay, I'm letting go of what looks like an emotional safety net, and I have to say that an emotional safety net, a relational safety net, but it's not. It's not. It's an emotional, spiritual juggernaut, and it was in my way, and that doesn't. I'm not trying to speak poorly of anybody, because I never want to do that. But I'm speaking of the way that I'm looking at the situation, and the way that I need to release and fly. And fly.
Yes.
Like you're doing, and it's scarier than hell.
It's scary. So I'm reminded too that people come and go in your life. Yes. Some people are only meant to be in your life temporarily. Let them go. And that's what we have to do too, is in letting situations go, knowing when we're done in one area and need to move on. And that has been huge eye-opening for me, as yes, I totally understand that. And it's because we also hear, how can you lack compassion if you just let people walk out of your life? No, I'm very compassionate towards myself and my mission. Yes. It's not being egotistical. It's what we need to do. We need to stop lying to ourselves, and then not letting society dictate how we're supposed to be. No, and just, exactly.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because I'm the one who says, me first always, you first always. And I mean that. But guess what? I wasn't meaning it for myself, but I mean it now, because I have to. I know it's very clear. Me first always, because I can't give away what I haven't got.
Exactly.
And, So we're coming to the last couple of minutes. We are in the last couple of minutes of the show, Tiffany, and my heart is just so filled right now, and I'm glad that I got to have you as a guest, and and wow, I have to do this again with you, because it's so. I feel like I think more people need to hear from somebody like you, as well as they need to hear from somebody like me, because we have such different stories, and which are so different, but really in some ways so similar. And I want to thank you for saying this to me as a healer, as a show host, but as a guest as well. And I love you, and I thank you for that. And you know, we're at where are we? We're at the end of our term today for Tuesday's show. This has been the Transformational Sacred Drum Medicine Show, and one of these days I'll learn how to say that correctly. And my name is Anthony Rodriguez, Walking Coal, and this has been a beautiful show with Tiffany White, Sage Woman, who I want to just thank from the bottom of my heart. And we look forward to seeing you folks next Tuesday. And remember, you can reach out to me at area code 818-442-1717 for anything that you may need to ask or talk about, or you can email me at anthony@sacreddrummedicine.com. And Tiffany, how can the folks reach you?
At my website, whitesagewoman.com. Thank you so much, Anthony. I'm very honored.
Thank you, and good night. Bye-bye.